Well, guys, we have less than 60 days and the biggest crash is coming. The housing market has bottomed out and this may very well be a very good time to get a house. That is, if you lived in La La Land and believe the tooth fairy still gives you a few dollars under your pillow. Do you guys think that now is the best time to buy a house? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But right now, it doesn't really look like it. Now, from the housing market, let's talk about our economy, as some experts are saying that no matter how much the narrative has changed, there is no denying that the United States is now in a recession. Do you guys agree with that? And is that how you feel whenever you visit Walmart or Target? Or are you like Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who says that we might enter a recession? Some experts say that the biggest crash is coming within the next few weeks, even saying that the S&P 500 could go down by as much as 86%. Wow, that would be an insane drop. That would be like the equivalent of like the Great Depression all over again, part 2. Are we now about to see the biggest economic crash in our lifetime? And while we're seeing different collapses in different markets and sectors, our government remains resilient in selling us on this fantastic idea of electric vehicles. Are you guys excited at the thought of buying an electric EV, brand new Ford Lightning, brand new Tesla, or is the price tag enough to push you away? Now, before I continue, please do me a huge favor by liking and sharing this video. It really would mean the world to me. And honestly, if you're new here and in need of your daily dose of the truth when it comes to the state of our economy, the housing market, the stock market, Social Security, and everything going on in Washington, D.C. that affects our lives, our families, and our bank accounts, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure your notification bell is turned on. And for the best way to invest in gold or silver, make sure to hit the links in the description down below this video, guys. Now, it pays to be attentive when you go online because there are some things that are not being talked about publicly well enough. Now, one instance is when Fed Chair Jerome Powell admitted that we're possibly going to be experiencing a recession due to all these banking issues. He said possibly.
The effects of the banking turmoil would likely lead to a mild recession later this year. It saw a recovery from that recession in 2024 and 2025. The staff had previously seen the recession as a possible alternative to its baseline forecast. Now it seems to have elevated that to the baseline forecast. Staff had previously, the staff expects inflation to step down markedly this year and slow sharply next year. We usually don't begin with staff, but this is a pretty big change right now in the forecast for the staff. It says the forecast is tied to the banking conditions, which are uncertain. It also says the Fed officials themselves in the meeting saw banking turmoil likely leading to tighter credit conditions, and it saw banking turmoil likely weighing on growth, jobs, and inflation.
Now, you might think, I don't remember him saying that in public, and you'd be right. It was in the minutes of their meeting, and it says right here, quote, given their assessment of the potential economic effects of the recent banking sector developments, the staff's projection at the time of the March meeting included a mild recession starting later this year, with a recovery over the subsequent 2 years, end quote. A mild recession might be an understatement at this point, but do you guys agree with the Fed on this one? Or are you like Grant Cardone, who says that we're already in one? So Grant Cardone, he runs a real estate investment firm, and he says, quote, the government continues to deny a recession. I don't believe them for a second. Advertising is off, and I believe the explosive job numbers reported this month are for part-time jobs, not full-time jobs. We are in a recession, and I have been planning for this since 2008 and started preparing for this in February of last year when the Fed started raising interest rates, end quote. Now, you might think that Grant Cardone is a very negative guy, but if you heard about what economist Harry Dent is saying, you would think that Grant Cardone is actually an optimist. So Harry Dent says that the biggest crash in our lifetimes is coming, and it could happen by mid-2023. Now, according to Harry Dent, quote, he said, we won't see this again. We will not see a bubble economy. Our kids will probably not even see a bubble economy decades and decades from now. It happens once in a lifetime at most, end quote. He had some wild predictions. Listen to this. He sees the S&P 500 slipping by 86%, NASDAQ down by 92%, and with Bitcoin, he predicts a loss of at least 95%. Now, this could be the bubble of all bubbles, and that history would talk about for generations, as Dent added this, quote, we have not cleaned up the massive debts and overvaluations of the biggest financial asset bubble in everything. We have never had a financial asset bubble in everything like this. This bubble has not been allowed to burst and clear out its excesses, which we need to do. And I think we are in that process now, end quote. Wow. So what do you guys think? Does this persuade you into being much more wary about where your money's going right now? The power to persuade is a very tricky thing, especially when you have people who go on your website to check for what's happening to our world today. Which is why I'm really surprised to see that Yahoo released this article entitled, the housing market has now bottomed out and Americans are buying homes again. That's what they're saying. Now, my initial thought was, what the heck are they talking about? right? They say that mortgage rates are dropping, but if you compare that to over a year's time, it's still pretty high. But fine, let's go ahead and give these guys a benefit of the doubt. Mortgage rates have gone down for weeks, and the average was previously at 6.28%. These days it's about 6.27%. Are you trying to rush out and open up your wallets now after a 0.1% decrease? Does that really excite you? Or are you seeing the same thing as many other Americans, that housing prices have yet to drop to normal levels? Now, I understand that, we all have different political preferences, and I respect that, and that's cool. We don't all have to share the same opinions. But it's just kind of weird when these same political preferences are being cited when we're being asked about our plans to buy an electric vehicle. I mean, I know that the president is certainly trying to get us all on the bandwagon to buy an EV, get rid of our gas-powered stoves, get rid of our gas water heaters, anything that's gas, just throw it away. So what if it's working perfectly fine? Just get the electric version. Yeah, that's what we're seeing from the current administration. But man, that's expensive, and some of these things are just inferior products, to be honest with you. Now, even with the government offering tax breaks of up to $7,500, demand really has not been picking up to their liking.
What stands in the way of making that? Well, we've got the old raw material issue. We have battery capacity that we're not yet. Are we going to have the batteries themselves? We also have a charging station issue. I'm going to show you that in a minute. And of course, the cost of electric vehicles. So let me show you one of those things. Right now, we only have about 130 charging stations. We need 2.3 by 2030 if we're going to have this amount of cars on the road. Now, that said, it means over the next 7 years, about 300,000 charging stations got to be added at a minimum per year to meet this number. Now, part of the Inflation Reduction Act was about doing that, and arguably, we have places to put these charging stations. They're called gas stations. So at some point, working with the oil companies to become charging stations is likely going to be a place we go. Then you look at vehicle costs, and this is again where the Inflation Reduction Act comes in. Right now, the average overall vehicle price just under 50 grand. Average electric vehicle is just over 60 grand. This Inflation Reduction Act gives you a tax credit of $7,500. That brings the cost down here to about $5,400, so then you'd have a $5,000 difference. This, however, by the way, the amount now that we expect consumers to use this tax credit is going to be far higher than we expect, than what was budgeted for. That's going to be a hit on our own debt and deficit coming up.
Now, what should surprise them more is that only 2 out of every 10 Americans are likely to buy an electric vehicle or EV. And that is if you ask Democrats. Now, if you ask Republicans, that number goes from 2 to 1. Now, I don't want to laugh, but it sure looks like a lot of Americans don't see the hype with the EVs. Maybe they should ask independents if they're on board. Now, the most common gripe that we have with EVs is the cost. I mean, who knew that saving the planet would cost so much money, right? Now, it's quite ironic that I'm talking about how the government wants to have more people interested in shelling out thousands of dollars for an electric vehicle right after discussing our economy and the recession that we're probably in. But hey, maybe I'm wrong, right? What do I know? So let me ask you guys, what's your take on EVs? Is it a wise investment? Is it a waste of money? Is it even worth it? Do you like being limited to only 300 to 400 miles before you have to charge your car for the next 20 hours? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, if we're going to talk about investments, there are some that you just can't go wrong with. I mean, there's precious metals like gold and silver. There's opportunities that are opening up in the real estate market as well as the stock market. Those can be very profitable as long as you know what you're doing. Now, in terms of cash flow, you can improve that with side hustles and small businesses, both capable of generating multiple streams of income. Now, obviously, it's not that simple to get into these things if you don't know anything about them, but this is exactly why I'm willing to guide you guys. So if you guys are interested in learning more about these topics, feel free to drop me a comment down below. The road to financial freedom is not easy, but trust me, it is worth taking. Now, before I go, guys, don't forget to drop a huge thumbs up for the video and subscribe for your daily dose of the truth. You guys are awesome as always. Please be kind to one another, and I'll see you guys on the next one.